That's not my outfit.
It's Death by Monsters.
Yeah, well, honestly, I can take or leave being alive. Hey, hello, welcome. This is Death by Monsters. Get out, you freaks! This is a show where we talk about monsters, mysteries, and the unknown. And this week's unknown is the Lost Colony of Roanoke. Ooh. I am joined by Paula Deming.
Hello. I'm Paula. Hi.
You said that way too quick. I took a drink. Nicholas Murphy.
Hello, Nicholas William Murphy at your service.
And I'm Matthew Jude. So, Roanoke, what's that all about? Thoughts?
I have a few. So I grew up in North Carolina, where this all went down back in the day. And so I learned about this pretty young when we started going over like state history in elementary school. And so this has been a fascinating topic for me. So I'm really excited.
Good.
I'm excited too. I've always liked the story. I never knew much about it, but I've always, they were there one day and the one day they weren't. It's just, it was fun. So yeah, I'm excited. I don't know. I mean, I know a decent amount about it now because I've watched like documentaries and stuff, but yeah, I'm very excited.
I have lots of thoughts, obviously, because I've been reading about this damn colony for well over a week now. And at this point, I'm glad the lizards ate them.
Yeah, I agree.
Aliens! If you think you're going to get through this whole podcast, Paula, without me bringing up lizard devils, you're mistaken.
I will say now, I don't believe that lizard devils had anything to do with it.
I'm on the fence.
Wait until you've heard this one person on the internet's theory.
Oh, boy.
I'm going to begin the story of Roanoke in 1539, which was a better time, where you could kill a man for his face being too clean. This is the year before the English turn up on the green and golden shores of what would later become North Carolina. But it's important to start this early because in 1539, the Spanish, led by Hernando de Soto, who was what you could describe as an immeasurable fucking asshole, arrived in Florida. Hot off the heels of pillaging the Incas, they go north in a vain search for gold and treasure and spend just about 3 years butchering the native peoples of Florida to Arkansas.
It's our Kansas, let's be honest.
Then they were forced, after De Soto's death, to flee back down to the Spanish frontier town of Panuco.
And good riddance.
Yeah.
While this is the last time I'll mention this particular band of rapscallion conquistadors, it will be, for many, as far as we know, the first time the native peoples of Southeast America came into contact with the West. And it was brutal. This whole thing really begins with some good old-fashioned envy and imperialism. Elizabeth I knew that the Spanish were making great strides in their genocide of the Incan people, and she wanted in on some of that action.
Sounds British, yeah.
You English, you silly English.
I've used the word pesky Spaniards in this many times.
Pesky Spaniards.
Delightful scoundrels.
It's whimsical, yeah, it's nice.
This is a dark story, essentially, of, like, brutal colonialism.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try and line it up a little bit. That's all there is to it.
I'm a fan.
So she being Elizabeth, she entrusts the mission to Sir Walter Raleigh, who in 1584 sends the English under the control of Captain Philip Amadeus and Arthur Barlow to set sail and reach safe harbour on the outer banks of the Carolina coast. And instead of asking all the people that were already there what the land was called, they named it Virginia, after the Virgin Queen.
Of course. I mean, the first time you see a new place, you get to name it whatever you want,
That's
regardless if it already has a name. It's like when you adopt a shelter pet.
Yeah, it's exactly... Oh, we should take this one. Oh, look at this one. It's so cute. I like it. It's got it's got a name tag already. Oh, Samson. On account of all those children it saved, it says, in that fire. That's nice. I'm going to name him Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long for the Native Americans to introduce themselves to the English, and though it was most likely an awkward and difficult first contact, they actually all hit it off pretty good, and they trade some stuff, and they eat together, and over the next month, the English, they just go forwards and explore, and the land they find, they describe as the goodliest land under the cope of heaven.
Yeah, well, North Carolina. Raise up.
Like a helicopter. I know that song with the T-shirt.
Yeah, that one.
And they say that before they walk into a mess of ticks and get bitten by an alligator snapping turtle. Just saying.
It's true.
Yeah.
And they're comparing it to Britain, which is, I mean, to put it very nicely, the most bleak place on the planet.
Oh, it's very bleak.
Yeah.
Britain is just one barren moor. It's a 2-horse town where both the horses died of tuberculosis.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they didn't get deep enough into North Carolina, but it's got it all. Like, you start on the coast, you go through, the grassland areas, you've got your foothills, and then you're in the mountains, and it's beautiful. It would take a long time to walk that, though.
Yeah, a little
And
bit.
all the juggalos, of course.
Oh, yes, of course.
It's lousy with juggalos. So it's all going just great. And by all accounts, the whole expedition was friendly. And they even returned to England with 2 natives, Mantio and one Cheesy. And everyone in England was fucking pumped about it.
Just so jazzed.
Oh, man. Amped. Absolutely amped.
How brave of those 2
Oh, I know, right?
Native Americans, by the way, who are just like, all right, we're just going to get on this boat and we're going to go somewhere.
For like months.
And who knows, like, where we're going, what it's going to be like, how long we're going to be gone. No one is going to be there who looks like us. Like, that's a lot.
And not to mention, you're going to like a city. Like, can you talk about a shock? Like, always living in the wilderness, having, villages and stuff like that. But like, especially a city like London, that'd be crazy.
I mean, it shows that the relationship they must have been getting on like pretty well.
Yeah, it seems great.
Oh, if only it could have stayed that way.
Oh, it never does. Come on, we're terrible.
It doesn't, just so if anyone doesn't know this story.
Yeah.
No one was more amped than Lizzie herself, who sends 7 ships, 600 men under the command of Richard Granville, who again is another colossal dickhead.
Yeah.
His favourite pastime being plundering and privateering, which basically means finding Spanish ships full of ink and gold and then blowing them back to hell.
Also, wow, I'm realizing how many places in North Carolina are named after assholes. Like Greenville, right? It's probably named after him.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Yeah, North Carolina, it's riddled with just horrible backstories.
Whereas here in California, we're named after godly saints and angels.
Oh,
and stuff.
yes. Yeah.
Because we're people of God here in California.
Yes, that's why the Zodiac Killer stuck to Northern California. The other important character is John White, who was an artist who documented the whole trip with a bunch of paintings and drawings of what they found in the New World, including some maps, which we will get onto later, of course. Now, this second group of Englishmen, by all initial accounts, got on like a house on fire with the natives. But it did not last, as things turned slightly sour due to supposed misunderstanding involving a silver cup, as the story goes, mistaken as a gift by one of the native peoples. And in response to this thievery, Grenville burnt down their entire village.
Yeah, checks out.
I mean, a reasonable response, I would say, like a completely reasonable way to react to someone not giving you back your silver cup.
What's annoying is Grenville died a hero. He had an incredibly distinguished career against the Spanish. He faced down 53 ships along with his ship, the Vengeance. But that doesn't change the fact that he was a staggering prick.
Yeah, like, who freaking burns down a whole town?
Over a silver cup. Like, he's definitely got another one. I just don't get, and listen, I don't know, I'm not some hoity-toity, British person from the 1500s, but it's just such a confusing concept to me, being like, wait, you're holding on to that cup longer than you really should. I'm just going to kill all of you. Like, it's just such an odd concept to me. I understand there was a different time, but like,
just be like, you know what? I'd like to have that cup back, but it's probably easier if I just don't ever mention it again.
I know.
Just super awkward. I once lent my friend John 50 quid, right? Lent him.
And so you burned down his house.
So I burnt down his village. I don't want to get caught up in this because it's colonialism,
Yes.
essentially.
It was
Yes.
everywhere, yeah. I mean,
Yes.
it just...
In September 1585, after 3 months, Grenville sails back to England to pick up supplies, but he leaves 100 men on Roanoke Island in the fort that they had constructed under the charge of Commander Ralph Lane. The 100 men are left to scout the land and survive the winter, but they don't know just anything about what they're doing. So they end up going back to ask the natives for food and supplies. And what's worse is that they help.
I know, they're so much better than us.
Yeah.
But the winter was particularly harsh, and the tribal leader, a man called Wagina, eventually just, said, I'm just going to leave these colonists to starve.
He's like, look, I can't feed you and my own people. I have to take care of my people. Maybe learn how to farm before you come to a new place.
Maybe learn anything.
Where you're going to need to... Though, I guess a point was made in something I was looking at that, like, in other places that these people had gone to, it was like there were like places where you could go and like buy from a shop or something, I guess. Like they weren't maybe necessarily expecting to have to fend so much for themselves.
They had to survive that winter by eating their own dogs. And by the time spring arrives, they're pissed off with the natives. And out of some revenge, they go and behead Wagina and kill just a bunch of the native people. And eventually, Francis Drake, who had just been in the area in Puerto Rico killing Spaniards, turns up, takes Lane and his men back to Britain. And then, like some kind of very slow-moving farce, Grenville returns and finds that everybody's left. So he leaves 15 of his men to stay at the Roanoke fort. And let me tell you, if those 15 guys had been in an episode of Star Trek, they would have all been wearing red shirts and all of them would have been called Ensign Ricky. Because when Elizabeth orders Raleigh in 1587 to send more ships to Roanoke, they arrive at the fort and find nothing other than a husk of a fort and the bones of one Englishman. The rest of Grenville's men had vanished. Well, and the thing is, right, is that this keeps on happening, is that more colonists and British and English people turn up not knowing how bad the relationship has already been strained.
Yeah, seriously, though.
Yeah, they have no idea really the mess that they're walking into at this point.
They're walking onto the shore and going, oh, hi, guys. And all the native people are going, oh, fuck these dickheads again. There's just more of these fuckers.
Like, all right. Well, we gotta take measures before they come and burn our village down and behead our chief.
It's also... I have a question. I'm sorry. Matthew, do you know how long it takes to sail from the coast of North Carolina back to England? Like, how long was that trip? Was it months?
I think
it was at least a month.
I think I remember hearing that a round trip was 3 months.
So they're like, hey, I'm going to go get supplies. I'll be back in like 2-ish months.
Let's be honest, it would have crushed. 7-Eleven back then would have really crushed.
Also, just like the existence of emails in general probably would have helped with a lot of these like ships literally passing in the night.
Google Translate would have been just epic. This new expedition was led by John White.
Sorry.
Who would become governor of the land, and the 117 men, women, and children who came along in the search of adventure. These people were colonists. They weren't soldiers. They were families and guildsmen. Not quite sure what a guildsman is.
Like a blacksmith or something like that?
Yeah, I feel like artist skilled craftspeople or something. Yeah, right?
Yeah, why not? And they were promised vast amount of land and wealth. And I have to tell you, all right, if I'd have had the chance to have gone with them at the time, I'd have, apps 100% would have gone.
Yeah.
This would have appealed to me. The sensibilities of the time, I am the kind of person who would have been like, yeah, I get to go to the new world, do whatever I want, and kind of like rule my own kingdom, have a town named after me.
I lived in Matthews, North Carolina.
Exactly.
What?
So it was named after you.
Yeah, an interesting bit of fact for you, Paula, is that I'm actually from Paula, which is a small mining town in South Wales. The plan was to go to Roanoke, pick up Grenville's 15 men, and head up the coast to Chesapeake Bay and settle. But the captain, Simon Fernandez, decided he did not want to take the colonists to Chesapeake Bay. And instead, he wants to go south to plunder the Spanish.
Oh.
Checks out.
If these people just did what they were supposed to do, things would have been so different. There's just so much poor management all the way around, just this is what bad middle management and bad upper management gets you.
It's like he just dumps them off at Roanoke too late in the season to plant crops and amongst a bunch of native people who were already fucking livid. The whole plan was not to stop on Roanoke, and up in Chesapeake Bay was it was deeper water, a much better place to stop, made more sense. But no.
Again, email would have solved so many of these problems. Email me if you need something. I'm going to go plunder the Spanish.
So they had no food, no real shelter, not a lot of anything. And as far as they knew, a bunch of natives that hated them for no good reason. And when the first colonist gets killed while fishing, they are understandably not thrilled. Luckily, John White, I don't know why that bit is the only bit in an American accent, encounters his old friend Manteo, who, though he lived on Croatoan, he pretty much just goes and tells the rest of the natives that he knows. So just goes, hey, look, I know these guys. They're totally cool. Don't worry about it.
And these guys are different from the other ones.
It's like, this is me old mate.
My old pal.
My old mucker. He's sound. So, Manteo goes ahead and organises a meeting with the other tribal leaders to try and broker some kind of peace. But the day of the meeting comes and goes, and John figures, right, just as any normal, decent person would figure, that they don't want to broker peace. So he does what any normal, decent person would do and goes in the middle of the night and attacks the first random village that he finds.
Again, people, email. It just... Oh.
Or just like... your reaction should be on par with the thing that happened. Like, there's no reason to, like, de-escalate.
And wouldn't you know it, it wasn't the natives that hated the Roanoke colony that he attacked and killed.
It was the friendly ones.
It was Manteo's own people.
Oh, my gosh.
While this is all going on, and while John tries to make everything cool with the Croatoans, John White's daughter, Eleanor, gives birth to Virginia Dare, who is described as a symbol of stability. Now, if I have learned anything in my life, it's that you do not want to be born a symbol of anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Props to her mom for being like, shoot, I'm super pregnant. Let's go to the freaking wilderness and we'll have a baby. Like, what?
She's like, y'all got hospitals out there, right? This is bullshit.
I thought he said Medicaid for all. And a few days later, on August 27th, 1587, John White is elected to go back to England to get supplies, which is pretty funny because White says that he didn't want to go, but a few accounts, from what it sounds, it's like the colony really wanted him to be the one that was going to leave for 2 months.
Please go away. You are ruining things with the natives here.
From what's understood, he was a heavy-handed asshole. They insisted that he was the one that was going to pop to the shop that were 3,000 miles away.
A little bit.
John says that he was picked to go as he would make the best man for the job, which later we'll find he wasn't.
Narrator, he wasn't.
He said that he was picked because he's best man for the job, but he was also in charge of the colony, so my money is on everyone thinking he's a dick.
Yeah.
He even had to make a pact with the settlers that if they had to move on, that they would totally give him directions as to where they went. They didn't.
And they're like, yeah, quiet. No, we got you.
You'll definitely be able to find us. We'll meet up. We'll meet up later. I will call you. We will get that coffee.
We won't hide so well that it'll be one of the greatest mysteries of all time.
I had never even thought of that before, but like, really, this is all just because they hated John White so much.
True.
That they're like, he left and they went, all right, we gotta fucking disappear.
We gotta fucking get the hell out of Dodge. We gotta go.
We got maybe 3 months, and that's it. Like, we gotta go now. Pack up your shit, everybody. Get out of here.
It took 3 years for John White to return due to the fact that the English were at war with the Spanish and their armada. He wasn't permitted to leave as all the ships were commandeered for the war effort. But in August 1590, John White, which I'm just now realising actually is the whitest name of all time, is permitted to sail back to Roanoke. And on his arrival, he calls out from the deck of his ship into the darkness, but receives no reply.
Oh, what's up, fam?
Virginia? Are you walking yet? I mean, he wouldn't have talked in that accent yet, though. I went real southern with that. He doesn't have that accent yet.
Oh, hey, girl.
All that was left of the colony was some clearly dismantled houses and the word Croatoan crudely carved into a post. But John White wasn't too worried because he had told them that if they were leaving under duress to carve a cross above the place name and above Croatoan, there was no cross. So John just went back to his ship, hoping to head to Croatoan the next day.
You have to carve a cross. Oh, first he's like, okay, you're in duress. First, carve in the name of the place you're going. Next, because you're definitely going to have time, also put a cross above it. I'm like, I'm under duress. I don't have time to, like, carve all this shit.
I don't even want to be here!
And then it's like, okay, but you're going to an island like Croatoan. If you're on the east side, carve a little butterfly. West side, make sure to carve a dragonfly so I know which side
How
you're
about
on.
just, like, leave a note that fully explains where you're going without a cryptic trek across a vast continent? So he thought he was just going to go to Croatoan and they'd be happy to see him. Although, in all this time, he hadn't actually bought any supplies with him.
That's true.
Wait, what?
He just bought a few guns,
What was he doing for 3 years?
warring with the Spanish.
Yeah.
He couldn't, like, get some bags of wheat and, like, some seeds?
Not allowed.
What the fuck is wrong with these people? I mean, this is like, you English have one job, and it is to colonize the freaking world. How did you mess it up this bad? Matthew, I'm asking you specifically as the representative of the British people.
Can I tell you right now, if you need a representative of the British people, you are going to be very upset with a few of my opinions. So he's going to go see go to Croatoan and find everyone the next day. But you know what? They ran into a bit of weather, and the captain didn't want to hang around.
These captains.
He wanted to go plundering the Spanish again.
Everyone just wants to rob the Spanish. Poor Spanish.
I mean, I'm not going to say poor Spanish. They were just massacring.
Okay, fair.
They were also
fair,
massacring
very
natives. They
fair.
just weren't on our continent.
John White died 3 years later, never knowing what happened to his family, his colony, and his legacy on Roanoke Island. But this leads to the fun bit, the theories. What happened? No one knows, but you better believe that some people on the internet think they do, including me. I do. There are a lot of theories, so I've chosen the ones that I think are most likely, and also the ones that I like the most. Spoiler, lizard demon. So,
Okay, well. Yeah.
So, the first theory is, of course, that the settlers of Roanoke went to live with the Croatoan tribe. This is, of course, because the word Croatoan was carved into a post, the letters C-R-O were carved into a tree, and that they were in contact with the Croatoan people. The problem with this, though, is that they weren't found with the Croatoan people, and the Croatoan people said that they weren't with them, and there's no evidence that they were in the area apart from 2 shards of 17th century pottery and a gold ring that some people think might have belonged to one of the Roanoke colonists, a guy called Master Kendall, who you gotta know was a dick.
I mean, wait, was his first name Master, or that's just like an English thing or British thing to be like, Master Kendall?
Oh, Master...
Mistress? Worthyngham.
Stop whipping that other boy, Master Kendall.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's not erotic. I don't know what his first name was, actually. His portrait annoyed me so much that I couldn't be bothered to find out what it was.
I did see that. He did look like a bit of a fuckboy.
A little bit.
America's first fuckboy, Master Kendall.
Yeah, so the next idea is that drought was the causal factor for the exodus. Researchers apparently have looked at the rings of cypress trees in the area, and during 1587 through to 1590, the southeast had one of the worst droughts in that area's history, and Roanoke was one of the worst places hit. Now, I'll just add this here. But maybe the land became alive and decided to... No, they didn't. That's
To
absolutely not
just
what happened.
swallow them up? I don't think that happened.
Like swamp creatures? I'd be down.
Fern Gully. Okay, well, maybe.
I mean, maybe. See, this drought wouldn't have just been hard on the settlers. If food isn't growing, it isn't growing for anyone. This would have raised the tensions between neighbouring tribes as well as the settlers. And there's every chance that this all came down to a good old-fashioned slaughter. Or, given the carving of Croatoan, maybe that was the deciding factor that made them move to live with the Croatoan people.
Right.
But that just brings us back to the first problem, which is, where the fuck are they? They weren't there.
Well, there are, like, reports of, people finding buildings, 2-story buildings that some of these Native Americans were living in, years later. People with lighter colored eyes or lighter colored hair, that could signify an interspersing of genes.
Well, when you put it like that, Paula, yes, because you're talking about the native descendants who live in Ropesome County, who say that their ancestors were from Roanoke because their family names were shared with some of the original Roanoke colonists, and they spoke words in their dialect that were used only by English speakers at the time, but are no longer used by anyone anymore.
That seems pretty compelling, right?
Yeah.
Meaning that they sure as hell at least had some interaction in the past with the English of that period. And if you can't tell by my excitement about this, I absolutely think this is what happened.
I want to go out on a limb and say this is exactly what I think happened. I think they got assimilated into a tribe. They were like, "Hey, are all those absolute pieces of hot garbage gone?" They're like, "Yeah, that's why we're moving here." They're like, "All right, cool, you can hang out," and then they just lived. That's my guess. Don't get me wrong. I'm gonna change my mind to lizard demons, but as of right now, that is what I just automatically assume happened. It's very
or at least
simple.
Some of them, like. I know some people are like, oh, but there were like 100 of them. If there were that many, how come you didn't? But we're talking like thousands of, I think it's like, 5,000 to 10,000 people in this tribe, right? I feel like it's pretty easy to get 100 people kind of soaked up in there, I think. And also like, I just feels possible. And there's no signs of struggle. There were no like mass graves to show a bunch of people just died off. There's no, bones or signs of violence left behind. I feel like they left willingly, and just like integrated into. This is one thing that feels plausible to me. I have a couple other theories.
Yeah,
though.
I mean, not to mention that, like, there's a lot of, like, mutual benefit between the two parties. It's like, if you're not being like, oh, you stole my cup, or we're going to burn your village down. They're like, hey, like, the colonists can teach them a lot of stuff about, like, building houses and, like, all this kind of stuff. And then they can teach. It's like, it's a pretty mutual beneficial relationship, to be completely honest, if you're not being a complete ass about it. And so it's like, it's so totally plausible. They're like, hey, you can teach us stuff. We can teach you stuff. We can get along, right? All right, cool. Like, let's hang out. Like, it's by far the easiest explanation.
I'll just augment, what Paula said as well, is that in 1607, a map maker called Francis Nelson stated that there were 4 people who settled near Croton Island who wore Western clothes. And Strahy, the Jamestown documenter, said that there were reports of people living in 2-story Western houses and that people of Roanoke had taught them how to make them. And 100 years later, John Lawson wrote in his book, A New Voyage to Carolina, said that the people of Hatteras Island could also speak English. Well, they could read English and had white ancestors. The next idea is more slaughter. John Smith, again, another incredibly generic name, was the leader of the 1607 Jamestown settlement.
And also way too old to be a love interest for Pocahontas. I'm just saying it right now.
Do you know what? I've not put it 2 and 2 together, but yeah, it's that John Smith, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
Also, Jamestown, named after King James, another place named after a Brit.
I've been to Jamestown. Anyway, keep going.
I wanted to go to Jonestown, but
that's different.
That is different. John Smith went to talk to the Powhatan tribe, and they said, yeah, we killed them, slaughtered a lot of them, and the tribespeople that they were living with, the Giusepians, because his priest had told him, and I'm going to imagine, I'm using the word priest, I'm sure that's probably not the right word, but they told him that they were going to rise up and kill him. However, this was meant to have happened way after they already had gone missing. So chronologically, it doesn't make any sense. And researchers now think that the Powhatans just got their slaughters all mixed up.
That checks out.
Or they were like, hey, we need to, like, make an intimidation check, if you will, and see if we can, like, convince these people maybe to not attack us because, look, we killed a bunch of other people who used to be here, so don't mess with us.
Don't mess with us.
You know what I'm saying?
That's a really good thought.
Yeah.
I'd not thought that. Yeah.
Makes total sense, yeah. Hey, fam, you see what we did over here? That'll happen again. Don't do it. Don't you do it, James.
It's like when we had that first meeting about doing this podcast, Paula, we had that video chat and you killed that dog. The next rabbit hole to fall into, as far as Roanoke goes, is the Virginia Pars map, which is a map made in 1585 by John White, the soon-to-be governor of Roanoke Island. This map has a couple patches on it, and once looked through a light box, they show what researchers believe is a fort, which was then covered up. But this, to me, is just a map that was wrong.
Yes.
I had a mistake on it.
100%.
Yeah.
John White probably just thought they were going to settle there, and then they didn't. So he covered the map up with a patch.
Yes.
I mean, and excavations have happened in the area, and nothing has ever been found.
Yes, nothing.
Yeah.
Although that has now been hampered because it's all a golf course.
It makes sense. Like even the documentary we watched with the one dude where they talk about this map, and I hate having to say that I agree with him, because even that dude was just like, yeah, I think it was just, they're like, hey, we want to build a fort here. Oh, we didn't? Okay, let's patch it up so no one gets confused. And I hate agreeing with that man, because I despise that man.
Oh, he was a total knob.
He was such a Richard Grenfell.
Oh my God, gosh.
Whatever his name.
I would not be surprised. He's like, after this episode, I'm going to go plunder some Spanish ships, because I tell you, oh my gosh.
The moment where he was like, I've seen this shape before. I drew it in my journal when I visited the fort. Like, he was the first person to ever recognize that fort was built in like a star shape.
Everyone
I was
else
like,
is
all right, dude.
I thought it was a giant starfish that ruled this region. Like, ruled it with it's right on the coast. Like, they could have ruled with an iron thumb from the water.
Hold on. I just need to go through my research. Aquatic underworld. Kingdom. I missed it out. Oh, fuck. Oh, well. Next, we will move on to the Dare Stones. So the Dare Stones are named after the would-be author Eleanor Dare. The first stone was discovered by a Californian tourist.
Damn right.
And then, wouldn't you know it, 47 more stones all happened to appear at the same time.
47?
Discovered by a farmer.
I didn't realize there were that many.
Yeah.
So the original Dare Stone, and which I'll add now, is the only one which I believe is even the remotest possibility of being real.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
The others really just do not stand up to much scrutiny, as researchers say many times that the farmer's stones were all made with a mechanic drill.
This idea that these people have time to like sit down and carve anything into anything else, like I am floored by this idea that like this lady just was like, we're on the move and let me sit down and carve a message into a stone. Like, I feel like there's a better way to go about doing that, isn't there?
I can't believe I watched a documentary about these stupid stones.
I believe that the original first Dare Stone could be real. I really do think that the initial Dare Stone has chances of being real, and I think that's a widely subscribed to theory. Is that the rest that farmer found during the Great Depression weren't real, and the fact of the matter is that the story on the stones kind of subscribes to the common idea of what happened at the time, whereas the first Dare Stone doesn't go into all that kind of mythology. All right, the first Dare Stone, which was addressed to John White, Eleanor's father, read, Ananias Dare and Virginia went hence unto... Actually, it's my accent. Ananias Dare and Virginia went hence up to heaven in 1591. Any Englishman shew John White governor via. Now, that basically means anyone who sees this show John White that Ananias, which was Eleanor's husband, and Virginia, who was unfortunately Eleanor's daughter, were dead. Which is sad, because the fact is, on the other side of the stone, it talks about the fact that all but 7 colonists were killed by savages. And I think it's authentic because it's just also just so terribly sad. Virginia Dare would have been 3 or 4 years old and just had a nightmare existence.
She really did. That's a tough life.
Again, don't be born a symbol of anything.
Yeah.
Especially something that you could die for, ironically. A theory that I really like, and one that doesn't discount the other facts, is that of a government conspiracy and cover-up.
Of course this is the one you like.
I'm calling that one.
This is that John White returned to the colony, saw that everybody had been killed, or at least most of them. He then returns to England, tells the Queen, and she decrees that no one shall ever know. Because the fact of the matter is that the novelty of the New World had totally worn off, especially as that they were still having a bunch of problems with the old world, that with the pesky Spaniards.
True.
Elizabeth, I wrote pesky Spaniards in this, and it's pretty funny.
Those rapscallions.
Elizabeth still really wanted, though, to lay claim to as much of the New World as possible, and that wasn't going to happen if everybody knew that the Roanoke colonists had either been butchered by locals or starved to death in a wasteland.
This is a fair point. I hadn't even thought about this, but actually, because the only reason we think, there was no sign of violence, there was, nothing no evidence of that was found was just because that's what John White has reported back, right? Like, we don't have any real corroboration.
No one goes to check, and it's not until 1607 that Jamestown's made, and it's not even particularly close. I mean, it's relatively close, but it's not like down the road.
But
You're
not really, yeah.
there.
This is an interesting theory. I can actually get behind this one.
The reason I like this as well is that it doesn't discount any of the other theories. They still could have died from drought and then integrated with the Croatoan people. Or anything else could happen, lizard people. Because it's just the fact that the reason that we don't know about what happened is it was a cover-up. Because the story of integration is much nicer than a story of butchery. And then it's relatively soon that the people do go to Jamestown. So if it happened, it also worked. So I do like this.
Yeah, this actually makes 100% sense.
Yeah,
Like, it really does.
It's not like fun. It's not a fun theory because it's not mysterious sounding, but it does seem plausible.
Yeah, it's like they show the awesome stuff. It makes sense. You should be like, okay, none of that happened. They're there. They've opened 3 7-Elevens. They're plundering the Spanish every day. It's great. They're crushing over there. They just started a dance team. It's awesome. You know, it's like, it makes sense that they'd be like, no, let's make this sound cool so people want to go.
Yeah.
Another hugely likely possibility is that they could have been slaughtered by the Spanish themselves.
Yeah.
Most of the stories that I've told so far end up with the British, the English, going down to kill some Spanish people.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of goes both ways, and there's every chance that the Spanish came up to destroy the colony. But the only problem is that doesn't pair up with the idea of the Dare Stones, the first Dare Stone, which I also kind of subscribe to.
Also, you'd think there'd be some kind of record, right? There'd be some kind of Spanish record of them going in, wiping it out.
The thing is, though, Ella Dare could have wrote on the Dare Stone that they were killed by savages and could have just meant the Spanish. I mean, there's no reason that's true.
No.
So, yeah, and I do think that the Spanish would have kept some record of...
You would think so.
Someone on that ship would have journaled.
Yeah, someone like these people keep coming and taking our ships, and they keep...
Sorry.
And they keep...
I think that's French.
No, I'm going for it. We're going for it.
Sorry.
And he's like, they roll up on their ships, and they keep screaming, Roanoke, bitch! And they take all of our money, and so we are going to go back, and we're going to kill them all.
Why did we bring this Frenchman with us?
I do not know why there is this French man.
But what about this thing where it's like, okay, they've dismantled houses because they used them to try and make a boat to sail themselves back to England, and then they were lost at sea, and that's why there's no remains. What do you think about that one?
I was thinking about that, Paula. I actually kind of agree, but it's slightly different. I think they're like, let's dismantle these houses. Let's get into this Spanish plundering business. It sounds great. Everyone's doing it. Let's build some boats.
So they went to Spanish.
Yeah, they went to go plunder the Spanish.
Themselves.
I tell you what,
they put Virginia to work, just holding that the rudder, on the boat.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they go to plunder these Spanish ships with just a rickety old raft.
Yeah, exactly.
That they built themselves.
Apparently, it was super easy to plunder Spanish ships back then. Everyone was doing it. Why couldn't they do it in a little sailboat?
So the other theories include that they all cannibalized each other, or that they were eaten by aggressive tribes.
I don't think they cannibalized each other. I don't think you become suddenly cannibals. I just don't think that happens. If you were already a cannibal because of your culture, that's one thing. But I don't feel like these I just don't see...
The Donner Party ate each other.
Yeah, but here's the thing with the Donner Party. The Donner Party is different, though, because they were up on a mountain alone. These people were around other tribes and stuff like that. I think they would have tried to then go take other people's stuff, but they're like, you know what? Let's just eat each other. The Donner Party literally did not have a choice.
I absolutely do not think they cannibalized each other.
He was playing devil's advocate.
I decided not to write a paragraph on that.
Yeah.
Because they didn't. Because there's other ideas that they tried to sail back to Blighty, but they were sank by the Armada. Though I find that really unlikely, as they couldn't even grow potatoes, let alone build a fucking galleon.
That's fair point.
Fair point.
There was an idea that it could all have been a plot by a guy called Sir Francis Worthingham, who hated Sir Walter Raleigh because the Queen just loved him. Everyone called Sir Walter Raleigh the Queen's golden boy.
Aww, Walter.
And they were really not happy when Elizabeth said to Raleigh that he could just have as much land as he could settle in the New World. The conspiracy is that Worthington paid off the captain who initially took the settlers to America. And that's why the captain refused to take them to Chesapeake Bay
Oh,
and instead dumped them on the island, which, let's face it,
interesting.
was a kind of a strange decision to not do
Yeah.
what he was told and go. I mean, it wasn't that far. They'd already sailed to America, for God's sake. So they dumped onto Roanoke Island, which was already known for being inhospitable, considering the garrison of men that had tried to stay out the winter there had all died.
And see, and that does, because remember, not that long ago, I was like, poor management. But it kind of makes a lot more sense if it was on purpose.
Yeah.
Like if someone was screwing it up on purpose. And also a lot of these theories don't discount the other ones,
That's
like you
very
were saying.
true.
Yeah, the idea that this could be some kind of conspiracy, that it was destined to fail. It's incredibly bleak, but so was everything in Britain at the time. So, I mean, there's no reason that couldn't have happened.
Well, I could say even now.
I mean, a little bit.
It's like the sun died. Oh, God damn it. I hate it here. The last and frankly most likely theory is reptilian wood devils.
God, let's do it. Let's do this. I'm so excited.
So admittedly, I couldn't find this very widely reported.
What?
Oh, you
What?
couldn't. I
Now,
wonder
stay with
why.
me. Apparently, the Croatoans had experienced some bizarre happenings before the Roanoke settlers went missing, such as large flocks of birds falling from the skies and large swathes of the animal kingdom dying abruptly, and a devastating drought. And what caused it? An evil reptile spirit that jumped from person to person, inhabiting their bodies and forcing them to kill each other in a chaotic panic. And the word Croatoan has been linked to and not confined to the death of Edgar Allan Poe, who said on his deathbed in a state of delirium after he'd gone missing, only to return a babbling mess, which wasn't necessarily anything to do with just a rake of opium. Croatoan was found written in the journal of Amelia Earhart after her disappearance in 1937, which we will definitely be covering at some point.
Yep.
I'm sure I'll be talking about aliens. You better believe I'm going to mention aliens. Ambrose Bryce, the horror author, vanished in Mexico in 1913, and the bed he slept on had the word Croatoan carved into the post. The stagecoach robber, Black Bart, etched the word into the wall of his prison cell before being released in 1888, never to be seen again. And Croatoan was also written on the last page of the logbook of the ghost ship Carol A. Deering in 1921, which ran aground in Cape Hatteras.
It crashed into Hatteras Island.
It's Croatoan, that's what we know it now. Though admittedly, at this point, it's arguable that the word Croatoan could have just been synonymous with death and upcoming doom, and nothing to do with evil devil lizards at all.
I think it makes sense.
I don't know that has anything to do with evil devil lizards, but I love that you brought up this list of Croatoan showing up places, because if you didn't, I was going to. I had it all pulled up and ready to go, because I find this absolutely fascinating. Like that. There are all these other mysterious disappearances, and this word keeps cropping up. Like, what? What does it mean?
Well, look, if I go missing, and I know it's coming,
yeah.
you better believe I'm scrawling the word Croatoan on the wall
100%.
in blood.
You better just scrawl it somewhere now.
I don't know whether this is the same in America. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's probably not. But in Britain, a lot of people name their houses, like, instead of have a number on it, it's like a little cottage.
Oh yeah, I got really confused when I was trying to mail something to someone in a house in Britain. I was like, is this a street address? What have you sent me? I had no idea it was so confusing.
Sheep Meadow? That's what your house is called? Yeah, it's very strange.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this? Is this a historical monument?
If I was going to name my house and my little cottage, you better believe I'm naming it Croatoan.
Oh, 100%.
Ooh, creepy. And then people come in to visit, and they don't come out.
Sexy. So, that is the disappearance of the Lost Colony of Roanoke. What do y'all think happened?
You know, I think they got assimilated into a tribe.
What I want it to be is that they just were like somehow zapped out of existence by something that has to do with this word Croatoan, the Croatoan spirit, who just popped them out of existence.
I didn't mention portals. There's a whole thing about portals to hell. I just can't even get into it.
That most fun version of what happened.
Big time.
But they probably some of them died, some of them assimilated, some of them tried to find somewhere else, and no one looked in those particular places for the remains of bodies, so they were never found, or there were remains, and like you said, Queen Elizabeth was like, no,
Cover that up.
we're not going to tell anyone this. is the most likely thing that happened, I think.
There's every chance that there was a conspiracy going in and there was a conspiracy coming out. The fact that it was doomed from the beginning, and the fact that that the ruling class didn't want everyone to know because they still wanted to go to the new world. And I think that the original Dare Stone, is probably right. And if that's right, it means that only 7 people survived. Anyone that managed to survive just went and assimilated with the Croatoans.
And especially if there were only like 7 of them, that makes a lot of sense as to why there isn't a bunch of records of it. You know, there's not a ton of suddenly just like white Native Americans.
If you've got 7 English people being assimilated into the Croatoan people, for instance, there's the next. It's 1607 that Jamestown starts. So you got almost 10 years for all of those 7 people to just die.
Yeah,
it was the most brutal, harshest environment for these white guildsmen and tradesmen to go into a native. I mean, the communication was at an all-time low. The fact that the people of Jamestown probably couldn't speak to the Powhatans about what actually happened without use of someone like Matteo or as some kind of translator. I don't think there's much of a mystery. I think they just all pretty much died, and the rest of them assimilated in.
I think it's the exact same thing. I think they assimilated in / died. What I want to be true is that they built boats. Now, let's go take over the Spanish galleons, and that's what I want to happen. But I'm pretty sure they just died.
There's every chance that the survivors could have tried to make it to Chesapeake Bay, which was the original place they tried to go, and there's just a lot of places in between to die
horribly.
Yeah, and have your body just never be found.
Yeah, you get eaten by animals and crap.
I mean, we're talking about a wild land whilst it was still wild.
Yeah, truly wild.
Yeah, or like a bunch of, if they're up the coast, you know, marshland, you get sucked into that, you know, it would be so easy for all of the evidence to just go away based on natural causes.
Yep.
Or lizard people.
Yep.
I'm just.
Well, one specific lizard spirit possessing people, I think should be clear.
Yes.
Sorry. I don't mean to mislead anyone. So, that was it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Death by Monsters. If you have any home strange stories, weird stuff that's happened to you in the middle of the night, like a Carolinian's thighs, you can contact us at deathbymonsterspodcast@gmail.com. All this information will be in the show notes below this. Twitter, we're at DeathBMPodcast, which just does not roll off the tongue at all.
It's not the best.
Search for Death by Monsters and you'll find us. We're also on Instagram and we have a Facebook group. I'm on Twitter, Matthew Jude, missing presumed dead. You know, come say hello to me there.
Lovely.
Yeah. You can follow Paula, I think, at Paula Deming. Is that correct?
You sure can. That is correct. That's me.
And Nick is on there as well, at The Brothers Mud.
Indeed.
Have I missed anything?
No.
Let us know if there's anything you'd like us to cover, of course. And if it's within the purview of like no more than 2 books I need to read, then hell yeah. Why not?
Hey, if you like this podcast, leave us a review and give us a rating and tell your friends about it because it really helps get ears on us. That was a weird thing to say, but it helps.
I think that made sense. But most of all, we would like your home strange stories more than anything, so please send them in if you have anything to tell us. And thank you so much for listening. And I'm going to say goodbye. Anyone else?
I'll also say goodbye.
I'm going to say hello.
Fucking revel. Absolute revel.
I say hello.
It's Death by Monsters.
He's like, literally all this evidence or these stones are fake or these stones are real, and literally all of this evidence is fake. And he's like, yep. And we're like, cool. Yeah, I hated that, man.
Also, that sweet North Carolina boy.
I know.
I felt for him as a North Carolinian myself.
It sounds nice when you say it, but if I say, now look at that sweet North Carolinian boy, It sounds
slightly different.
Well, when you say it like that, yeah, it's real creepy.
the pasty white thighs of a North Carolinian.
Okay,
So,
well.
But okay, going back to what we're talking
No, we
about.
get out in the sun.
Yeah, we can tan.